listening to the Nerdy Reads podcast, a hipster goblin media production.
Hey, what is up, everybody? I want us to think about a thing that we have been into, or hobby, or something that you discover. And once you do and you get into that thing, it just becomes something that you just think about constantly. You want to keep diving into it. So whether that's like playing an instrument or a video game series or a certain style of book, perhaps. Well, that's exactly what has happened to me and Robert here recently as we have dived in to the LitRpG world. And we started with Dungeon Crawler Carl. We've read the first 2 books of that. And those are amazing, amazing stories. And now we were like, hey, we're going to keep doing that series, but we want to try something else and just talk a little bit about it, just to kind of get some different flavors in this genre of book. And so today we're talking about The Mayor of Noobtown, which is book 1 of another series by Ryan Rimmel. And so Ryan is, it seems like I was kind of looking at his Patreon, and he writes these Noobtown series, very passionate about it, loves creating these characters. And he talks about how he was encouraged to make a Patreon by several of his fans. So here it is. People support him in what he's doing. So really, really cool. We just encourage you to go check that out. But today we're talking about the first 9 chapters of The Mayor of Noobtown. So, Robert, give us the rundown.
All right, man. For anyone not in the know, LitRpG is a genre of books relatively newer that combine the mechanics of role-playing games, fantasy, and science fiction. So it's very similar to video games. These novels feature game mechanics, RPG stats, and character progression, most important of all. If you're at all a fan of role-playing games, this genre is more than likely for you. I'm confident in saying that.
100%.
Easy.
100%.
So we're checking out Mayor of Noobtown by Ryan Rimmel. It's a comedic LitRpG series about a dude named Jim who wakes up after being hit by a truck, seemingly dying, but now he's in a fantasy world, and he's got like a sarcastic little demon with him named Shart, and he accidentally becomes the mayor of an abandoned town. And That's it. That's the gist of what we have here.
Yeah. And so we started Dungeon Crawler Carl, read a little bit of some other ones. He Who Fights with Monsters, and that's another big one. And one common theme is most of the time when these people end up in one of these worlds, they don't have anything on, period. So everybody's trying to find pants is what I'm starting to discover in this genre book, is everybody's always pantsless, trying to figure that out.
Definitely. And Jim, he kind of wakes up and there's statues all around him. And the statues are very much like choose a class, like warrior, rogue. I don't remember the order of all the statues, but there was like very much so like when you start a video game, I guess, for instance, Path of Exile 2, there's like a bunch of bodies on the screen and you click on one, it tells you about the class. He kind of does that with these statues. And he gets an ability called Unbound, which is unique. I get the sense that that's very important as we go forward in this story. But essentially, he kind of keeps going lower and lower in these levels until he runs into 2 demons, and one wants to kill him and one doesn't. And Jim's arguing with the fat demon the whole time, and then the demon's like doesn't like Jim making fun of him, so the demon just kind of smashes him out. Like, I picture the Hulk smash with Loki.
Yeah, dude.
That's how I picture that. And he like knocks him out of the room essentially, and then he wakes up on a grassy field. And now we're in this like fantasy world. Yeah.
And so he gets there, and this little demon is not quite the same size as he was where they were before. He's tiny, and but he still has his powers, and apparently he's still very strong. And our friend here, Jim, is trying to figure out all these things. What is all these menus and what is going on here, which I'm sure is all discombobulating to some degree. But even he mentions in this that it doesn't feel too weird. Like, almost seems common, but not. It's a kind of a weird thing, because I guess they can't make it to where it's like just so otherworldly that people are like petrified by it, So I get why these authors are going in that direction with it.
I get that. the cool thing about Jim and this demon now, like he kind of essentially kills the demon and gets like 9 billion experience points, but he only hits level 2 because in this world, the system won't let you level up past your cap for your current level.
Yeah.
And then he eventually names that demon Shart. And what a name, by the way.
Yeah.
And those two have a weird relationship. It's like a hate, but we need each other because the system has it in place to where Jim is caused harm anytime he disobeys Shart and vice versa. So like they can't be too far away from each other or they start, getting in pain and all that stuff. So it creates a good dynamic for these two dudes who can't stand each other.
Yeah, I mean, and Shart almost works as like a tutorial, really.
Yeah.
Because pretty much anytime Jim needs anything, he's like, well, what is this? And Shart's like, you idiot. Do you not understand this? And he'll just he'll tell him or gives him some advice as to what things are, how to level up. And I mean, Shart even put himself in harm's way for our boy Jim.
Fighting the wolves. Yeah, he jumped in and got treated like a chew toy. Bro, Jim.
Yeah, dude.
I guess the unique thing about character progression in this one I've noticed so far, which also just sidebar, I like how throughout the chapters, every like 2 or 3 chapters or so, you get like an update. It's like, this is Jim's level. Yes. Here's his stats. Here's like the abilities he have. I hope more LitRpGs do this. That's something I really wish Dungeon Crawler Carl, which I love it. Fantastic. I wish it had some type of like, just, hey, here's a quick recap of what everybody's like levels and abilities are and stuff. And maybe I'm in the minority, but I like that information.
Yeah, and I think Dungeon Crawl Carl does that in viewers. So it doesn't do it but it doesn't do it in like what they're actually growing in. But I agree with you. I think it'd be kind of cool to hear like that too. But I like that about this in particular as well. I agree.
Yeah, I do like that. And he, so right off the bat, like Jim notices when he puts points in the strength and endurance, the world works instantaneously. So he goes from like dad bod to like fit, lean college kid, as he described himself. And Shart's kind of like, hey, dude, there's a nearby village we need to get to. You need to find some quests. This is going to lead you to better gear. This is kind of how all this world works. And he gets his first quest where he has to return the demon to the demon door, which means they're essentially stuck together for now. And Jim's not really in a hurry to return Shart either, which is pretty great because the whole time Shart's like, hey, man, let's do my quest. And Jim's like, nah, I'm going to accept this one to kill like 12 wolves first.
Well, and also Jim knows like, if I do this, you're and I guess there's like this weird thing where and maybe did you just mention that? I don't know. Where they kind of read each other's, he can read Shart's thoughts or feel.
Oh, like, yeah. I forgot.
Remember that? Like, it's almost like he could tell when Shart's lying or when Shart's being honest. So that's like when Shart tells him something, he knows like, oh, okay. Because he knows like, I can tell when he's lying or not lying. And so they really do have this like odd little connection that makes this story very interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, dude. I also like how you mentioned earlier, Shart puts himself in harm's way for him, and we learn like his blood's poison to some of the enemies in this world, but their first enemy they run into is a wolf. And I thought that was a nice like little gamer nod because, dude, how many RPGs you played where the first thing you're killing is a rat or a wolf?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's so typical. Yeah. And this is like the newbie zone of this world or whatever. So kudos.
Right. I thought, I like the fact too. It's interesting. So Jim starts off as a warrior, levels up warrior. And then when he starts selecting his points, obviously he gets all bulky. He's like big. He's a warrior.
Yeah.
And then somehow he ends up switching to rogue. Dude, I love how Shart was calling him a basic, we try to keep this thing PG, but
basic warrior.
Yeah. And then when he ends up switching over to rogue, he's like, wait, what's going on? How are you a rogue now too? So like, I guess whatever that like orb was, he selected in the beginning as some sort of like very unique class where I guess it sounds like, because he's a ranger now too.
Yeah, he can like ain't a woodsman, I think.
Yeah, that's what it was. Woodsman. That's what it was.
Yeah, he can like multi-class like as much as he wants, seemingly, I guess.
Yeah.
And I thought that's pretty cool too, dude. I like that. I also liked at one point there was a Legend of Zelda Easter egg. Like he found a dagger and he did the da 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 da.
Yeah.
Little stuff like that I love, giving a nod to the game. But one of the funnier things happens when he runs into his first goblin and he's killing wolves, and he kills a wolf, and this goblin like attacks him, and it turns out the wolf Jim killed was the goblin's dog. Like I appreciate random humor like that in games, and I think Baldur's Gate 3 is a role-playing game that has good humor like that, so that's good stuff. And after all that kind of goes down, Jim and Shard have more of a conversation about his unique ability with dual classing, but then Jim can also gets a crafting ability that confuses Shard, because most crafting's like you pick one. Are you a leather worker? Or are you metalsmith? Well, Jim can do it all.
Right.
It's just crafting. It's not like a specialized thing. So I think that's our breadcrumb so far as we're early in, is like, what makes Jim special here? And, you know, how's the relationship with him and Shark gonna go down?
Yeah, I agree with that. And obviously, you know, it's at least what we're thinking right now. And we haven't looked too far into the future of this series. I know there's multiple books, but it appears as if this is going to be some sort of city builder kind of thing, because he ends up going to a town. And when he gets there, there's more goblins in said town, and this town is dilapidated, and looks, from what the sounds of it, is it's not a place anybody really wants to live. But our boy Jim ends up slaying all these goblins and almost dies in the process of slaying these goblins. And he is now the mayor of this town. So now we have a situation where, you know, he's going to have to start building this place up. I thought that was kind of cool. And I like the fact that, you know, when he's getting quests now, he's the quest giver and the quest doer, because he's the only person in this town able to do so.
Which is a nice touch too. And I
thought so.
I really like when you're playing a game and you get the opportunity to like kind of take over a town and build it up your own way. I mean, who amongst us doesn't like Animal Crossing or some type of little management sim like that? Those are like some cozy, relaxing games. I don't know how cozy and relaxing Noobtown is, considering goblins keep like trying to assault through the barrier. But an interesting thing to note is that when he became the mayor, there was population of 2. And I assumed it was Shark, the little demon with him, but it's not. Shark's like, hey, I'm basically just a familiar, much like I'm the familiar of the Nerdy Reads podcast to my boy boss man Jay. So I couldn't be the population of 2. And we find out there's someone in the village named I don't read audiobooks. I don't know if it's Toman Masterbrook or Tuman. But he gets a quest to remove a statue's curse, and if he does, he is rewarded with this person as an active resident in his town. So we have like all the RPG stuff I like in a video game. I've got my quest. I've got my city management. I'm ready to download Mayor of Noobtown and play this game for myself.
Without question. And, you know, I don't know, again, kudos to you on chapter selection of when we ended this one this week. But it was interesting because he is now on a quest to save people. So I'm assuming these are people that will be added to Noobtown at some point down the line. But he is on a quest. He gets his bow. He gets ready to go and save people. And here we are. Once that cliffhanger happened, I was like, well, now what? You know, like
I want to read him go assault the goblins and get the people.
I want to see what happens.
I do think there were a couple of things too towards the end. Like Jim had a very like a contemplative moment where he thought about his former life, and he's like wondering about his wife and you know, what happens if he dies in this world and so on. And so, dude, a question I wanted to ask you, given our very limited knowledge of this world, do you think Jim can survive death and just respawn in this world, or do you think the mechanics are a way where he dies, he's dead?
Man. They talked about that because I remember that when he was thinking about that. And I was, because
I believe Shark's like, no, you don't come back. But I mean, Shark's going to tell him whatever, right? We can't really trust Shark. Part of me thinks Jim's in a coma in the old Super Mario Brothers 2 fake out. Like he's just in a coma from the car wreck.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, because if Shart really, if he just kept coming back, I mean, yeah, because a part of me was like, well, I guess maybe then he would just go back and they would start over, but then Shart would encourage him to die if that were the case. So
true.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. It's good. I'm guessing we'll find out.
I guess so too, and I do appreciate how this one's like pretty video gamey. Shard even mentioned there's like expansions to this world they're in, a druid grove and a pirate ship, and I was like, man, they made my boy Justin's game.
That's right.
How do we play this?
Yeah, Mayor of Noobtown, high recommend right now so far. Really, really, really enjoying this. So, Robert, you got 3 words for us today?
What a name. How do you name this demon? Shart. All the names in the world, Shart. It made me feel like I was 13, but I giggled at it every time.
That's good. That's good. Hey, legit genre. I'm only going 2 words. LitRpG so far has been amazing. Enjoying this, loving it. So, Mayor of Noobtown. We'll be back next week, actually, to continue reading through this series. Loving it so far. Looking forward to it. If you haven't read this yet, and you want to jump on and join us, highly encourage you to do so. So we'll see you guys next week for more Mayor of Noobtown.